Narada Muni's travel around this last verse that you described, Aho Devarshir Dhanyoham. He's so he's dhanya. He's really successful. He's auspicious. He's good, and this point that you mentioned about how the Bhagavatam describes him taking pleasure in what he's doing and then using it to relieve the suffering of others. I just want to highlight that this is also one of the consistent themes of the Bhagavatam that becomes apparent very early on here, right? Like Prahlad, again, he is not merely interested in his own liberation, which he has successfully achieved by the point that Lord Nrsimha appears. He's sitting on the Lord's lap and being showered by his affection. And yet he says, I am too concerned about those who are suffering in this world to remain here comfortably upon your lap. And that mood is clearly visible in his guru, right? Like he's received something of this mood from his teacher, Narada Muni, whom he mentions that my first duty is to serve him. And how does that service take place? Well, he says, how is he going to serve Narada? We're clearly not massaging his feet. That service to Narada, he says, will occur by the fact that he will demonstrate care for those who are suffering in this world. And then he goes on to rule and be an ideal king for many years after that, right? So I just want to point out that emotion, that mood of seva, not just for oneself, but for the world, is that compassion, that karuna, is very much demonstrated right here in Narada Muni, who's kind of the seed of devotion for all of these other bhaktas that we find throughout the text. And Narada Muni is saying the same thing. In essence, he has now received the lap of the Lord. He's happy, he's comfortable. He has his vina, he has his service, he's constantly ecstatic. He can rest if he desires. And yet it says here, no, ramayati, right? So we have the causative. He's gayan and madhyan, he's enjoying and he's singing, but ramayati aturam jagat. He makes it a point to cause the world to also enjoy. What kind of world? An aturam, a suffering world. And it is in this seva that he finds his freedom, that he finds his, and the previous verse says this very beautifully. He says, Yayo yadrichiko muni. The sage goes yadrichika. He goes as he wishes, right? He receives his freedom. And Prabhupada's purport in that previous verse, describing Narada Muni's freedom in service, I think is my favorite purport in this chapter, where Prabhupada says this beautiful little dissertation on the nature of freedom and how devotional service is predicated on freedom. He says, without freedom, there is no execution of devotional service. The freedom surrendered to the Lord does not mean that the devotee becomes dependent in every respect. To surrender unto the Lord through the transparent medium of the spiritual master is to attain complete freedom of life. And he says Narada particularly is the example of this, who is free to move not only on earth, but also in any part of the universe. So it's this wonderful vision of him being bound by his mother's love, right? You mentioned this earlier. Then being unable to bind Krishna, then successfully binding the Lord by his own love, and the Lord is at his beck and call, and then ending with this sense of complete freedom in this world. Now that he has his seva, he has his vina, and he has the permission to speak Harikatha. The text mentions these words, Harikatha, everywhere he goes. Now, no one can stop him, right? No one can hold him back. And it's in that freedom that he experiences his greatest joy. And also, it is because of that freedom that he has the ability to relieve the suffering of others.